a look at all the important global handover coming in for us this morning. And Shreyansi, tell us through what the US market has done, because we have seen a couple of shaky days coming in, but all seems to be well for the NASDAQ once again.
Well, absolutely. Good morning, Snehi. It was a bright day, in fact, for the NASDAQ also, because when you take a look at the move coming in for the NASDAQ, that is the one that gained around 1.8%, topping the 20,000 threshold as well and posting an all-time high as well as a closing record. So that's the move coming in as far as NASDAQ is concerned. But even when you take a look at the broad market, that is the S&P 500, that's the one that added 0.8% thereabout, and meanwhile you did have the 30 stock Dow on the other hand that did underperform when compared to the other two indices, because that fell around 99 points or just about 0.2%. So that's the kind of move that you saw coming in as far as all three of those indices are concerned. But let's also take a look at November's Consumer Price Index report. Now that also came in line with economists' estimates, leading investors to then anticipate another rate cut from the Federal Reserve at its policy meeting next week. Now this is something that we've been talking about for a while. This is a data set that was awaited, and we'll of course be getting you more details on this later in the show as well. But for now, it was in line with estimates is what we're going to be talking about. Other than that, there's of course additional inflation data that awaits us on Thursday morning US time with the release of the Producer Price Index report for November as well. That's the one to watch out for, because you do have the kind of expectations that are there is that of a 0.2% increase on a monthly basis, and you also have weekly jobless claims that we're watching out for. So that's all the data that is on the deck. But speaking of what's on the deck, there's also on the earnings front chip giant Broadcom, home furnishings company RH, as well as retailer Costco Wholesale that are due to post results after the bell as well. So those are the ones that we're definitely watching out for. And that largely is what the handover does look like when it comes to NASDAQ, S&P 500 as well as the Dow Jones. But Snehi, tell us about oil then.
Absolutely, lots been happening on the oil front as well. Let's take a look at everything that's been happening with oil. We'll also be talking about what's happening with gold. First up, let's take a look at everything that's been happening with crude oil first. You have lots of reasons that have come into play today, and lots has happened in the oil market last evening as well. Lots of updates trickling in, but before we do that, let's take a look at what the WTI is up to, and that has crossed that $70 per barrel mark, now at 70.3 as we speak. So that's a big jump coming in on WTI oil. You also have Brent that is close to that $74 per barrel mark, so but a bigger jump coming in on the US WTI oil index. You have lots of action that has come in, and oil prices in general have jumped yesterday after the European Union has agreed to an additional rounds of sanctions threatening Russian oil flows, while a larger than expected build in US stockpiles last week has capped the gains. Also, you have European Union that was in focus, the EU was in focus, and we'll be telling you more about that as well. But just to give you a slight bit of an idea of what has happened, the EU has agreed an additional round of sanctions threatening Russian oil flows. So that is something that is in focus. The EU ambassadors agreed to a 15th package of sanctions over Russia over its war against UK. We'll be telling you more about this as well. Now, curbing price gains on Wednesday, gasoline and distillate inventories rose by more than expected last week, according to data from the EIA, weighing on crude prices. Meanwhile, producers group OPEC cut its forecast for demand growth in 2024 as well as 2025 for the 5th straight month on Wednesday, and by the largest amount yet. Now, weak demand, particularly in the top importer of oil in the world, which is China, and non-OPEC plus supply growth were two reasons behind this price surge that we have seen in oil, and especially everything that's been happening around the EU and their sanctions as well. However, investors anticipate a rise in Chinese demand following Beijing's latest plans to boost economic growth. So that is something that's going to be in focus. Quickly just taking you through what gold is up to. And gold is advanced as inflation data has fueled Fed rate cut optimism. We'll be telling you more about what the inflation print is looking like from the US as well. But as of now, spot gold at $2,755 dollars per ounce is what gold is doing. But that's one.
If you like this video, then like, share and subscribe to ET Now.